A while ago, I conducted an event, right? And my friends came over and they invited another friend of theirs. Now, being the host, I had to make small talk with all my guests. So I had to go around and have conversations with everybody until I got to this person my friends had invited. And well, I ended up having a great conversation with the person. I mean, it was nothing personal. He wasn't trying to hit on me. He was in a very happy, very serious relationship. He was just something you would call a good gentleman, right? And we had a great conversation. We talked about relationships and marriage. I ended up sitting there for hours. So anyway, a week and a half later, my friend calls me and said to me that it was his birthday. So obviously, I had to return the courtesy. So I had to attend the birthday. So on getting there, I mean, the location, the ambience, the decor, everything, you could tell this was a man of affluence, right? I mean, looking at him, you could tell he was quite wealthy. But one thing I noticed, like when I got there, I just walked in and I sat down and I was just kind of like looking around. Then I saw him a bit far away. And one thing I noticed was like, there were so many, like all these beautiful, absolutely stunning, gorgeous women all over him, right? Draped in like expensive jewelry, expensive clothes and bags. They were drooling over him, right? So eventually he looked up and he saw me and I kind of waved and then he came towards me. And I mean, the smile on my face, you could tell what I was thinking. So he just said to me, well, what can I say? I have a thing for beautiful women. And then he walked away. All right. So after he walked away, he went to sit down with them again. But I noticed he was completely detached. Like he had all those women falling over him, drooling over him, but he was totally detached. So in my mind, I was thinking, obviously his girlfriend couldn't have been there. Do you understand? In my mind, I was thinking by the time she came out, she would probably be draped in like diamond and pearls and everything. And all of a sudden, this lady came out of the house. So he cheered up a bit. And I mean, she was very casual, just in a t-shirt and jeans and everything. She wasn't what you'd typically consider pretty or beautiful. Do you understand? She had minimal to no makeup and everything, but it wasn't what I was expecting anyway. So as soon as she came out, he got up and he was talking to her, and all of a sudden he kind of brought her towards me, like, come and meet my friend. But as they came closer to me, oh my God, I got it. Like, she had the most beautiful smile I had ever seen in my life. I am not kidding. And as she came towards me, she just stretched out her hands to embrace me and everything. And oh my goodness. And she hugged me and we're talking. Her energy was so radiant. It could like light up a whole street. I'm not kidding. Like, she had a beautiful persona, beautiful energy. Oh my God, it was amazing. Like, you could get lost talking to her, like literally. Anyway, somebody now got her attention from the house. Somebody was trying to call her from the house, so she had to leave. So she left us alone and everything, and she went. And he was just kind of like looking at me like, what do you think? And I said to him, seriously, you're the luckiest man alive. And I meant it, And he goes, I know. I walked away. So anyway, this incident completely changed my notion of what beauty is. I mean, it's not really about beauty on the outside. Don't get me wrong. You should look very nice on the outside. You should take care of yourself and look good, right? But don't ever forget to work on your inner beauty, right? You see, for me, when I see women that use a lot of makeup, I just kind of feel like they're hiding something. I'm not saying don't use makeup. Makeup is supposed to enhance your beauty, not change your face completely from Clara to Sierra. Do you understand? Like, people can't recognize you anymore. So that's what makeup is supposed to be for. But anyway, every time I think about this incident, the only character that comes to my mind is the Shunammite woman in the Bible, in the Christian religion. So please, if you're not familiar with this, please look it up. So the Shunammite woman, right? Her name was never mentioned. The only way to identify her was by the town she came from, which was Shunem, So hence she was called the Shunammite woman. I mean, she was referred to as great, a great woman. So obviously, she was wealthy. It was recorded that she was wealthy and she was well respected. But one thing that wasn't necessarily recorded was that she was actually very beautiful. Let me tell you how I know that, because the prophet Elisha refused to gaze upon her because he was a holy man and she was a married woman. So he didn't want to, he could not gaze upon her because obviously because of her beauty, because he was holy. And it would be a sin for him to be checking out a married woman, right? So she was beautiful, but she had more inner qualities that were more significant. So that was recorded. Okay, the first one was her contentment. She was a very contented woman, right? Okay, so there was a time after she was very nice to Prophet Elisha and fed him and everything. She gave him a room in her home. And Elisha was thinking, okay, what can I do for this woman to repay her back and everything? And he spoke to her and said, you know what, I'm going to speak to the king on your behalf. I'm going to do this. And she said, no. I'm actually very contented. She's a very contented woman. I always say that most of women that do strange things for money, they're not doing it out of luck. Most of the time, they're actually doing it out of greed. I mean, there was a lady, I saw her post, a grown woman, beautiful, I mean, looked really good. She was actually crying about online, about how her friends were buying expensive hair and expensive this and expensive that, and what was she doing wrong in her life. Now, please tell me, how far do you think that sort of woman would go for money? I mean, I was talking to a friend of mine at some point, and I said, when I stopped seeking for God's hand, I found the secret to happiness. I stopped seeking for the hand of God, like, do this for me, give me this, I want this, I want that, I want this, you understand? And I started to seek for the heart of God, like, what can I do for you? What step do you want me to take? What do you want me to do? I discovered the secret to happiness. Do I have needs? Absolutely. But I don't focus on them. I am very, very grateful for where I am and what I have, because it could be otherwise. It's other people that take painkillers for my headache. Seriously. Because you see other people looking at me like, why is she so happy? I once had somebody ask me, what's wrong with you? Why are you always so smiling? Why are you so happy? Don't you want to get married? I'm like, I do. Don't you want to have this? I do. Don't you want that? I do. So why are you so happy? I'm like, I have life. Because I have life is why you can have this conversation with me. It could be otherwise. So that should count for something, right? Anyway, the other thing that was actually recorded about the Shunammite woman was her kindness. Oh my God, she had such a kind heart, and it was so attractive. Like, she had needs, right? But she never focused on her needs. She still, even with all her needs, she wasn't bitter about it. She wasn't cursing God. She wasn't angry with people. She wasn't annoyed about people. She wasn't bitter. She still extended her hand to the poor. I mean, she didn't know Elisha from anywhere, but she offered him a place in her home. Does that make any sense? So she wasn't bitter. She was really, really kind. And the sort of need she had was actually one that money could not buy. See, in those ancient days, right, women were predominantly supposed to bear children. Yes, they were supposed to procreate. And that was the one thing she did not have. She was childless. So she had all this money, but the need she had was something money could not buy. And guess what? Her kindness, her kind heart made something impossible possible in her life. She was given that need even without asking for it. If you look at the other women in the Bible, there was Hannah, there was Sarah. They were all praying for a child, but she wasn't praying, not because she didn't trust God, but because she thought it was impossible. She and her husband, they had exceeded childbearing years, so she wasn't even asking, but she needed it. That was what she really wanted, right? So that kindness, that kind heart that she had, the kindness she extended to Elisha, it made Elisha pray for her, and she bore a son a year later. See, a lot of women, if it was another woman and other women have kids and she doesn't, and she will be bitter towards them. She will be, you see what I'll do to you, oh my God. Then think about it. After they've done all that evil or whatever it is, will it change their situation? No. Will you make them more happy? No. But you see, a lot of people just like to see other people as unhappy as they are. It's very repressed thinking. And lastly, what was recorded about her was her persistence, her faith in God. Now, that same child she bore, right? After a few years, he had grown up a bit. So he was working in the fields with his father, right? All of a sudden, a strange sickness came upon him and he was shouting, my head, my head. So the father sent him into the mother. And the boy actually died on her laps. What did she do? She did not scream. She didn't cry. She didn't shout. She didn't get on the phone. She wasn't hysterical. She wasn't screaming at God. She wasn't insulting God. She carried that boy and went to lay the boy on the bed in Elisha's chamber. You know, the room she had given to Elisha in her home. So she laid the boy on the bed. Now, think about it this way. In the Old Testament, God spoke to people through the prophets, right? In the New Testament, he gave people the opportunity to speak with him directly through the name of Jesus Christ. That's in the Christian religion, right? So he did that. So by laying that child on Elisha's bed, what she did was she took the problem directly to God. Does that make any sense? So she took the problem, she laid the problem before God, and then she went after the voice of God, to seek after the voice of God. She went after Elisha. So as soon as she laid the boy there, she went after Elisha. As Elisha saw her coming, he sent his servant Gehazi to ask her if everything was okay. But she refused to speak to Gehazi. So she wanted to speak to Elisha directly. As she got to Elisha, please take note, she never once said the boy was dead. She never mentioned that. Why? Because she understood the power of words. Words are very powerful, right? When you pray, you use your words. When you speak, you use your words. Sometimes what you speak about is what you bring about, right? So she knew that if she declared that the boy was dead, that would indeed be the case. All she kept saying to Elisha was, it is well. She displayed such strong faith. Elisha eventually followed her and, he did some sort of CPR on the boy. I assume it was CPR because it was recorded that he put his mouth on the boy's mouth, his eyes on. So I assume it was some sort of CPR. And then he prayed and he woke the boy, right? And the boy woke up. The question I really have in mind is this. Do you think her husband knew what had happened? Because it wasn't mentioned in all this, right? The last he knew, the boy was shouting, my head, and he sent him into the mother, right? But she never shouted. She never cried. She never declared that the boy was dead. She just laid the boy down and went after Elisha. Do you think, the man must have come in from the fields and, do you understand? And he would have seen the boy playing. So probably he didn't even know what had happened. He didn't know that at some point the boy had died and the boy had risen or whatever it is, Here's what I think. I think, like my friend, the good gentleman, based on the woman the husband chose, he happens to be the luckiest man alive. Namaste.